So here's a thought. The technology is not the idea. The technology is not the creative idea. So what am I talking about here? Some context, right? As we talk about creative and technology. So in the world of marketing and advertising, whether it's for a business like a big Fortune 500 corporation or for an ad agency, like maybe it's a small creative firm or a big global agency doing work for those corporations to help them with their marketing. Anyone who's in the role of coming up with those ideas, shaping them, figuring out how to execute them. Maybe it's an art director or a creative director or a producer or an account person, a strategist or a technologist, right? What they need to do is come up with ideas that will communicate the core message on behalf of their company or their client, right? And something I've noticed over the past 10 years is, and I've been thinking about it for a decade really, and a lot the last couple of years, is this conflation that takes place with clients, especially with companies in these marketing efforts, where they'll conflate whatever the hot new technology trend is of the day with the core of some creative idea and messaging in their marketing, instead of focusing on coming up with a very solid creative idea and a clear creative story they want to tell or message they want to get out. And part of this is a byproduct of the fact that every year or so, in any given year, every couple of years, there seems to be some hot technology trend that companies want to jump on in some way. They want to jump on the bandwagon and figure out a way to incorporate it in their marketing in a clever way to sort of show that they're innovative and ahead of the curve and creative. And in the rush to do so, oftentimes this conflation takes place. And what am I talking about when I talk about hot technology trends? It's like generative AI right now. Like everything is AI. Clients are rushing to figure out how to use AI in some way in their creative and their marketing story. And it's been like that for a couple of years now, right? Anything with AI. A couple of years before that, it was the metaverse and NFTs. And before that, it was augmented reality or AR. And for a little while, virtual reality. Somewhere sprinkled in the past couple of years was doing something with crypto. Or before that, it was gaming or mobile gaming or just doing something in mobile. Before that, it was doing like an app, right? And this is going back many years now, like a decade or more. But really, over the last couple of years, I've really seen it accelerate. And I'll give you a good example. And the reason why this is important is because I think in confusing whatever that technology trend is and trying to jump on it without really, and conflating it with what the message is, the actual strength of the creative idea takes a backseat and suffers. And because of that, the overall marketing suffers, and it can translate into a waste of a lot of money and a lot of time. So here's a good example. So a few years ago, a very large, successful luxury car brand, which I'm sure you know, decided they wanted to do something with the metaverse and NFTs. And they came to their agency with this idea. And the agency came up with an idea based on that brief, a concept that would result in building a virtual car dealership in the metaverse where consumers could come and actually put a down payment down on this new model of their car in the metaverse. And the first 100 people that came would get a one-of-a-kind NFT from that car brand that they could use in the future in some way for like some reward or discount or something. Or they could resell it. And that sounds like really clever. And it also sounds very buzzwordy. And it's understandable that companies and marketers want to do something like this, right? They want to jump on whatever the technology trend is and leverage it in some creative, interesting way, in part to capitalize on the buzz. And part of the goal is to get free media attention or earned media, to get good PR out of it. And one of the things we often talk about when we're thinking about creative ideas, and I say this as someone who works for a large global advertising agency with large clients working with creative in the digital innovation and technology space, is that, does this idea pass what we call the PR test? Is it the kind of thing that a journalist would want to write about, right? Because that's great free press. And oftentimes you hear an idea like this and that you think, yeah, that sounds interesting. But at the end of the day, whether it's a success, and ultimately it'll be determined by the consumer and people and the audience and how they engage with it, whether it's a success. It really depends on the quality of the idea and the message and the story and what it's trying to communicate and what its objectives are and how it's executed. And if the focus is just on trying to jump on doing something with that cool new hot technology trend, like at the time, the metaverse and NFTs, without really thinking through carefully, realistically, the idea, how it would be executed and how you're communicating to your audience and what the return on investment is. That's really the important part. Then the idea is going to fail, and it's going to be a colossal waste of time and, more importantly, money for the client. And in this case of this car company and their virtual car dealership, very few people came to it. Very few people actually tried to purchase a car, and it was a waste of a lot of time and money. It was a flop, basically. It sounded cool on paper, but I think part of it was because they had not really taken the time to really think through the idea and ask themselves, why are we doing this? And if we are doing this and we're trying to incorporate the metaverse and NFTs into our marketing, how is this valuable? How does this serve the message we're trying to get out? How does this propel our story and help us reach our marketing objectives, whether it's sales or brand awareness or whatever? And so, it was a cool idea. Probably would not have been such a flop if it didn't cost so much to execute, but it was so expensive to produce that. And so the ROI was very, very low. And so it was kind of like a cautionary tale. And so I think it goes back to what I was saying before. The technology itself is not the creative idea. The creative idea is the creative idea. You come up with a really solid, strong, compelling, interesting concept that supports your marketing objectives and the message you want to get out there, the story you want to tell, and then figure out how and if it makes sense to incorporate whatever that technology is into the story. And really, this technology, again, it's not the idea itself. It can be part of the idea. It can be part of the story in some way if it makes sense. But really, these tools, they're there to help us enable the idea, to help either execute or to spark creativity. And then maybe we can figure out a way to put it into the final product where it's actually central to the story, but only if it makes sense. And if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't work, if it doesn't result in a good experience, or it doesn't resonate with the audience, then it's not going to be successful. So remember, the technology is not the creative idea. The creative idea is the creative idea. Lock down your idea and your story first, and then figure out how the technology figures into it. And if it does, awesome. Make it happen. All right.